segment of the show for today. The guest is the president of Tennessee State University, Dr. Johnson, and we're talking about the Tennessee State University and the national education agenda. And of course, Dr. Johnson, before we had our first commercial break, we promised that we'd give you an opportunity to talk about the national agenda, and this is your opportunity to do so.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Haney. One of the things that President Obama has really set aside, and that is a very aggressive and robust agenda for higher education in the United States. As a matter of fact, when he looked at the competitiveness of the United States vis-a-vis the rest of the world, he noticed that we'd lost our position in terms of college completers, that is at the 2-year and the 4-year level. And so his agenda is to make sure that we take over the world position by the year 2012. And to do that, he's going to need a lot of cooperation, not only at the K-12 level, but also in higher education, both at the community college and at the 4-year institutions. And so this agenda then will focus not just on in terms of getting people into the pipeline, but it changes that focus to how we get them out of the pipeline. In other words, graduation rates.
Good.
So for higher education institutions to really concentrate on that, we've got to ensure that these students can persist. We've got to ensure that they are retained and that they actually come out of the pipeline really ready for the workforce. And when you stop and think about the national strategies to do that, it's quite simple. We've got to align our educational system. So the first strategy is educational system alignment. And I want to bring in some of the tools that even the state of Tennessee is using, and Tennessee State University has been involved in that. The governor set aside a Tennessee Alignment Committee made up of higher education leaders, business leaders, etc. And they are attempting to ensure that the funding formulas are changed so that we focus upon the right things, meaning graduation rates, retention rates of our students, and secondly, that we're ensuring that the students are prepared once we receive them in college. And so the Tennessee Diploma Project was instituted to do just that, to make sure that we are receiving students from the K-12 area that are college ready. Now that lessens our workload. Once you get a student that's well prepared, you have to spend less time in the remediation of that student. And you can spend more time in terms of advisement, not only academic but also career advising, and ensuring that that student has a smooth transition to college, but also one that's going to ensure that, that they are successful degree completers. The other part of that strategy, of course, is participation. We've got to increase the level of participation of Tennesseans to attend community college and 4-year institutions. The governor used a statistic, and I mentioned that earlier, that if we take 100 ninth graders, only 19 of them will be successful at the other end, that is completing 2 years of college or from the 4-year institution. We've got to improve that.
That's 20%.
That's 19%, but that's something that we can't be satisfied with. So therefore, we've got to be able to use this as a vehicle of increasing our participation rate, and that also would mean that we would become an attractive community for corporations to relocate here who's looking for an educated workforce. The other thing that we've got to make sure that we do is to ensure that the learner outcomes are achieved. So we've got to really concentrate on student learning outcomes at the university to make sure that we pay attention to how we are improving the learner outcomes, and so that means proper assessment vehicles to do that. We've also got to make sure that the students persist, so we've got to have tools and available advising strategies to ensure that they can move through the pipeline and that they complete their degree requirements. But of course, taxpayers and the public are looking for returns on their investment. We call that ROI. And so therefore, we have to make sure that we have alignment with the economic and workforce needs of our community and for the businesses that are relocating here. We think that at Tennessee State University that we're well prepared for that with the array of programs that we have in emerging technologies and emerging fields that will allow us to prepare students for that workforce and for that global workforce as well.
And so this is a very, very comprehensive program. And I think you mentioned the year 2012. Now,
2020.
I'm sorry, 2020.
Right.
Now, that seems to be really ambitious in terms of trying to raise us up to Well, number one, if that is a goal, does that seem to be overly ambitious?
Well, it's overly ambitious,
that?
but we have not seen the amount of injections. I'm talking about financial injections from the federal level that we're seeing now. Not only with the stimulus funds, but also the College Completion Act and all of those funds, the Race to the Top, are all programs designed to hone in on these strategies that I just mentioned to you.
And so in a real sense, there's a lot of money that's available to educational institutions, historical black institutions, as well as other institutions.
Well, that is correct, but it's all going to be competitive. Now, you take the race.
Explain that. Why don't you talk about that?
Well, and I think the governor, Governor Bredesen, has done a good job of laying that out to the legislature and also to the public in general about the race to the top. There are some things that are going to be required to make this state competitive for those funds. And so things that he's trying to work out now are, how do you actually evaluate in-service teachers? Do you make their, you know, how productive they are in the classroom in terms of the student test scores? Do you tie that to the evaluation process? So there are productivity measures that are going to be utilized now. If you look at it from the university level, if we're going to concentrate on graduation rates, are we tying some of the performance funding to those rates versus enrollment? That's the present system today. So you've got to make those kinds of realignments, and that's what the governor is attempting to do, so that the state will therefore be competitive. Now, one of the things that naturally makes the state of Tennessee competitive is the fact that we have the most robust data set of students that have gone through this pipeline. We know exactly how they have performed, and we know exactly what variables are included in the databases that would account for that performance. And so we have some tools here that we can use to see what works and what does not work.
And so, in other words, you've got a great technological situation that you can rely upon, and that you have been relying upon for the last many years in terms of already having a lot of that data available.
And that's why I think that Tennessee will be extremely competitive as far as those federal funds are concerned.
Very good. And of course, we're making preparations for this second commercial break, Dr. Johnson, after which we'll come back and we'll have a final segment, and that will give you an opportunity to talk about some of the other things that you wanted to talk about when you left coming here, and to make sure that you get those things in. And of course, we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.